All right. Just
You don't want to be
start over to
responsible
I'll
for
just
Zoom.
someone's
listen.
unfortunate
All
There are
right. Well,
no
he's
laws
not,
about
behind the wheel.
Zooming.
yeah, I see his hands are mostly on the wheel. So, all right. So we are live, and let me just pull up the agenda, but I'll defer to the acting chair. So,
That'd be me.
yeah.
Jane isn't here, so I'm gonna just be chair today. Um, and you're going to share your screen with the agenda?
Yeah. Sorry. Let me just show that. Oops. Sorry. You all see that good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks. So thanks everyone. And I'll try to do a decent job chairing this, although Jane is the master. Andy said he has only until 4, so let's try to move through these things like pretty efficiently today. I guess we're starting with any public comment. We don't really have any members of the public, so we
Right.
can move on past that one. Approval of the 4/30/25 meeting note. Any questions about any of
Move
those?
to approve.
Okay.
Are we following Robert's rules? How do you want to do it, Jules?
I'll
Second.
second. Okay, Joe second.
Approved.
Aye. Yes.
All in favor?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
All right. The meeting minutes have been approved. Thank you all. Moving on, committee updates, MVP project, the MVP 2.0, which you all know we've been awarded, and they'd like to get us started with the consultants and the project team and all that, but I haven't been involved since I left. So Andy, I'm assuming you might have an update.
Sarah may want to speak to it as well. I just wanted to know, and I think other than you just emphasizing, I think the 2.0 is very much focused on the community engagement side. So given the amount of work that Newburyport's already done on some of that, we'll be kind of continuing that, I think, and it might be an opportunity to, at sort of the later part of it, look at a specific project or initiative in the city. So I think that's something, an area for us to discuss. I think we've had 1 or 2 ideas, of course, but I think just to make sure we're all on the same page about the sort of project or review that we're doing together on a specific, location, for instance, Cashman Park, has come up, something like that where we can really apply the community engagement too. So that's something I think for discussion either now or, and, continue to the next meeting.
So, Andy, I'm sorry, just Sarah, did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say, so at the next steps that we captured at the kickoff meeting, we're identifying the municipal project leader and then looking for publishing an RFP to hire the planning vendor. And we were waiting for the replacement for Julia to get hired.
Yep.
So we still in the same state?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're still doing a little bit of triage right now, covering the gaps in between. So we normally we might say, all right, that person's going to, Julia would be the person, unfortunately, we're not able to do that right at the moment. So so that'll take a few more weeks. And so in the interim, I will be obviously trying to bridge gaps where we have these meetings and coordination matters. Otherwise, there are a few things like the issuance of, the RFP and whatnot, things like that, that we'll have to hold off a few weeks just because there's so many other things, unfortunately, going on right now with the council and other boards that it'll be hard for us to do that right this week or next week. So,
Did they assign us already a liaison or somebody? Who was
Yeah.
it we got assigned
Yeah.
initially?
Peyton Seiler Jones of Seiler Climate Consulting.
Okay. And what is Peyton's role? A she or a he?
She,
She, yeah.
she's the equity partner.
Oh, that's right, the equity partner. Okay.
And then we also have to hire the RFP is for the planning vendor, which we thought about possibly using Collins Center again.
Good idea.
But I'm assuming that as part of the grant, we have to put the RFP out and get at least 3 bids.
Well, they said we could follow our own internal procurement.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument that this falls under the exemption for the full-blown procurement process, but I think clearly we're going to want to get a qualified vendor, and we may want to get a couple of proposals for the price end of it, regardless. So, well, I don't think it falls under the same rigid umbrella as some of the more, there's an exemption line item for stuff like this for planning and surveying and engineering type consultants, but putting that aside for a second, we may want to get more than one proposal. I'm not as concerned about that. I think, like it's been noted, that's a reliable entity. So, but
What's the suggested dollar amount to the contract? Is it more than 5,000?
Yes.
Yes.
So that would, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, typically we're going to go out and at least get quotes from these firms based on the, we provide them the scope of work at least, and then ask for the quote for that. With an RFP, you're looking at how they propose to do the scope. So you're getting a little bit more of a nuance of their approach to it. Whereas if you're just getting a quote, it's here's the scope and you're doing exactly that for this price. So, but
So Andy, they've given a draft RFP. We could, if you
yep.
want the help, we could pull that up and just see how much editing it needs in the interim.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, and again, if somebody wants to take a stab at that, do mark up what you think is necessary to that and then forward it back. It's just that I will still have to take a look at it. Someone in the city who
Yeah,
deals with procurement
of
on a
course.
regular basis would have to take a look just to make sure that there's nothing that's missing from that.
Yep.
And then we have to do the advertisements, depending on how we're approaching that, how broadly we're doing it. And like Barry got at, there's certain thresholds. The idea is we'll want to make sure the average, the dates that it's open and when we want the responses by and all that kind of stuff. So if somebody wants to take a look at that and send something back our way, we also have templates for RFPs. Generally speaking, it's just that we want to plug in the particulars here, especially for the limited or specific scope of work for this grant. So.
Yeah, I think the work is going to be vetting the responses, not putting the RFP out.
Right, Sarah,
True. Yeah.
Sarah, you and I can talk about that, and we can, I think we can loop in Tom Watkins. Andy, don't you agree? And
I
then
do, definitely.
And
I
then
mean,
we'll bring you in after that.
yeah, this should not be a very significant,
No,
end for
it's
an
not a
RFP
big
to be
deal.
issued. Yeah, not a big deal. And but then we'll have to do that, like you said, that process of ranking them as well, just to pick one. So
Okay, so do we have a copy of this
Yeah.
draft RFP?
yeah, we
or
got the
any-
attachments from them. So
Perfect.
if you don't have, we can push that to you if you don't have it. Yeah.
Great.
Do you know if we received the $50,000 yet?
I have not seen that come in yet, and I can check with Ethan again though.
So the $50,000 is for the pilot project.
No, that's
and-
for the first year.
Oh, that's for the first year.
Yeah, it's 50 the first year, 50 the second.
Got it. And then it's 50 for a pilot project, correct?
And that's the second year. Yeah,
That is the second year. Got it.
right.
So,
So the 50,000 is for this planning vendor for paying community liaisons and any kind of community events that we do.
Okay. So, then we, as a committee, need to determine, and as a city as a whole, I'm assuming, need to determine what project we would like to put forward for the second
Well,
year.
That's
Yeah,
not urgent. That we have more time on that.
Okay.
That's
good.
part of the task of the core team that's put together
Okay.
for the first team.
Okay.
First
great.
job, first they reprioritize the requirements after they've been trained. And then the same team determines what project to be put forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I somehow have been like eliminated from the distribution list on this MVP stuff, probably because of the automatic response email that goes out when people email me now. But
Yeah.
if someone wants to, I wouldn't mind being looped back into that.
Yeah. Let's
So
make
Which
sure that
email?
Yeah.
We haven't had any, other than the kickoff meeting while you were away there.
Yeah.
And she's pinged us a couple of times and said, are you doing anything? There
Okay.
hasn't been any emails.
We can let them both know really, and then push you the attachments that we most recently got with that, meeting
Okay.
discussion. And then on a go forward basis, Julia, you're still using the city email account, right? So you wouldn't need another address for this particular.
I wouldn't need another address, except that when people send emails to me at that account, they get a return
Right,
email
right.
telling them that I'm
I
not
guess
there.
maybe we could adjust the response just to clarify one or two, or I don't know.
Yeah, we could do that, or you could just put my home email.
Well, is that you that can change that? Or is it the city?
I don't know if I can change that.
No, we can check with Dave on that, but we should be able to make sure that you can adjust that setting yourself, as
Okay.
usual.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
We'll take
right,
a look.
well,
We'll take a look at that with David, but there shouldn't be any reason why you can't do that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Either way, Diane and I can take care of that if that's an issue. So.
Okay. No worries.
But that way you could adjust it to clarify how you want one or more things to be responded to, and that.
All right. Sounds good. Anything that says MVP, I'll just say open.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Bring it. Okay. All right. So any other questions about the MVP 2.0 project or schedule?
I think only that maybe we could throw on the next agenda, just carry this and talk a little bit more, maybe just flushing ideas about, I realize it's a little bit early, but just to start flushing out ideas about possible projects for that tail end. I know it's early and I know
Right.
they'll be working on that, but it might be good to just kind of throw out initial ideas from this group just to have some, a little bit more to work with there. So anyway,
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
I'll leave that to the chairs to decide, but just might be beneficial.
Okay. I think in some ways it'll depend on whether or not we get the Cashman grant, the action grant for Cashman, whether we want to be able to, if we don't get the action grant for Cashman, maybe we want to come up with something smaller that we could do an initial piece of that.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so we'll carry that to the next agenda. And in the meantime, Molly and Sarah will take a look at the draft RFP and suggest any modifications, send it back to you. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Great. All right. So moving on, community education. Wow. I mean, we just finished, or I should say, Sarah and Jane and their team just finished the most epic project for community education on resiliency, I think probably ever, at least in our area. And I think MVP is super proud of everything that happened here in Newburyport. So Sarah, do you want to address all that with the debrief and everything?
Sure, I'll start it and then others can jump in. So we ended up with 200 people pre-registered for the event through Eventbrite, but we didn't capture the full attendee count. So we know it was, we think it was more than that, but we don't know for sure because we didn't have an on-site way of tracking people as they came in. There were 30 people on the tour, 89 for the film. I haven't heard anything but positive feedback, notably on the exhibitors and the tour. Molly got great response there. The weather hold, there wasn't any parking fiascos. For the expo, we have a meeting on Thursday to capture lessons learned, and then we need to close out all the financial aspects of that before the deadline of 6:30. But we're just winding it down at this point.
Can I just add one thing? I think
Sure.
attendees, both on the tour, the film, and at the expo, were not the usual suspects, which I think was really great. I mean, we always have the same people going to, all these different types of events that we have, and these were different people that I've not seen before.
And we can add them to the e-alert list because that was
Yeah.
part of the signing up for Eventbrite was they agreed to get
Right.
added to our mailing list. So that's good.
I'm
So-
sorry, in terms of the 6:30 deadline, are you anticipating any sort of, everything's been very organized about this project, which is wonderful, but any sort of last minute, because of bureaucracies and circling back and getting documentation and any questions or concerns there?
We don't have any at this point.
Okay.
We for the grant itself, we also have to produce a lessons learned document as a whole. So that's the other deliverable for 6:30.
Yeah.
But we have one more activity, and I'm going to let Barry speak to it. That's next Sunday, and that's the very popular Doug Ptolemy speaker event, sold out in a matter of days. So Barry, you want to walk through any issues with that?
Sure. Yeah, sold out because the price was so reasonable. But when immediately people subscribed, I thought, geez, we should have charged a few bucks. We might have made some money. Anyhow, it's great to talk to him. He's excited about coming up here again. He was last here in 2011 on a book tour. And he spoke out at Parker River at the refuge headquarters one night in their little amphitheater. So this is going to be a larger gathering. I think everything's squared away. His AV requirements are very modest, and Jabberwocky has agreed to sell books. They're going to set up. They ordered I'm not sure how many. I made a recommendation, and I think they're going to bring several boxes of his books for a book signing at the end of his presentation. I dropped the ball on one thing, and that was a event reception. Sheila Tainter had offered to help on that, and I didn't get back to her in time. And she said, Elizabeth. I still don't know who Elizabeth is.
It's probably Marcus.
Could it be? Yeah. I hadn't thought of Elizabeth Marcus.
Elizabeth Marcus.
Wants more lead time. So unless someone has a brilliant idea on pulling together a quick reception, beer and wine and some nibbles.
Well,
for the
so
event.
Barry, the firehouse will cover the beer and wine because they do it for sale. So
Yeah.
that'll be there by default. And we have $200 in the grant that we allocated for food. So
Mhm.
it really is as simple as somebody putting in an order at Market Basket for what you want and keeping the receipts and sending them into myself or Molly.
Uh-huh.
So, we can help with that if you want.
I was going to ask if someone else could pick that up and do it. That would be wonderful. I'm scrambling a bit, getting some other things done, not just this event, but scholarship event at the high school and some other things. So
Okay.
I don't know if any hands are going up in the air, but
Yeah,
Portland,
I mean, I can help for sure. And then afterwards, he's gonna be signing, right?
Doug's going to be signing. We'll have
Yeah, so that's another opportunity. I mean,
yep.
So we
And
need enough
just,
food
if
for
we
the
just
game.
have cheese and crackers out for before and
Sure.
after, I think we're
And
fine.
Jabberwocky will have, they'll do all the money exchanging because they're selling the books for Doug to sign. And they, when they're done, they pick up whatever isn't sold and put it on the shelves and sell it over the course of the next few weeks. They've been great. Sue Little's terrific. Paul's terrific. They're really nice to work with because they've done this so many times.
And then the only other thing that we committed to in the contract was taping him. So
Mhm.
NCM Hub is doing that and
Yeah.
they're going to send Lily.
And he agreed. He had no problem at all. He said, as long as nobody's making any money on it, it's
No.
fine with him.
Yeah, just local access and it's an out so for the people who weren't able to get tickets.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is he's also going to a Gunkwit and doing a free talk there at the Playhouse. So we sent that out too on social media to let people know if they missed this one.
Yeah. He's on the road quite a bit right now, so it'll be fun.
Is he staying with you, Barry?
And he's staying at the Garrison. I
Okay,
wasn't sure if my daughter and her 1-year-old were going to be here, and
right.
actually she left yesterday. So I said, hey, let's just put you up at the Garrison, and I'm going to pick him up at Logan, look, get him settled in, and then fed, and then I'll get him up to the firehouse
Okay,
in time for the event.
sounds good.
Okay.
All
So
right, I'll get the cheese and crackers.
Okay, thank you.
do you have a time for the person from NCM Hub to be there? Do you have like a pre-set up time or something with him that we should organize her around?
I think about 6:30, and I'm kind of vague on that because I keep on playing phone tag with the Firehouse Center, the tech guy.
Oh,
And so, over the last several days, we've just exchanged messages. I'll be here now, and I call and they're not there, and I said I'll be here now, and so we'll connect today or tomorrow. I'll just go down and bang on the door and see what things look like.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All he
So
needs is a projector for a slideshow, and he'll just be flapping his lips. It is not
Yeah.
real complicated AV.
right. And I don't think the taping is very hard either. She'll just set up her
No,
camera and go.
no.
So
They're generally really experienced at having done that before at different events, so that's just
Yep.
plug and play. Yeah.
okay. Anything else on that?
Not that I can think of. I guess I'll if unless someone really, really wants to do it, I was going to do the initial introduction and just, welcoming people and giving a brief bio and letting him take it from there.
Then sounds great.
Barry, thanks, Molly and Sarah.
Sure.
That's gonna be a great event. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, so moving off the MVP grant, just a couple other things. You all know we have story maps that we created for the grant and for the resiliency projects in general. We learned from MVPC that they migrated their their GIS infrastructure to a self-hosted situation as a way to save money. And we lost our ability to buy $100 license that we had last year. So they've offered an alternative of a $700 a year license that we could buy. Um, it's a pretty high cost. We could maybe cover it this year with some money left over from the grant, but I don't think we could cover it in future years. So I'm not sure that's the best option. Steve Lopez asked if the city had other licenses that we could share. And they would use some of their LTA hours to migrate our stories to another account. He thought maybe Diane was using GIS and might have a license, but he didn't know for sure. They,
Andy, you're muted.
So if you're asking about ArcGIS, we're
Yes.
actually in the process right now. We put in our budget cycle to on the next fiscal year after July 1 to hopefully with the council's approval, just to make sure our software is up to date. So if you're looking, I think at the type of software engine that they use is on the web, which we don't have. We use the client, so what will be on our computers essentially for analysis. So I think the type of platform that he's referring to is not something that John Eric at DPS or we would have for this. And so it probably is the only path or the more efficient path to work with them on that front.
We
You
have
know,
we have GIS, Andy.
yeah, but I think we're talking about a web-based platform to project. I don't know. I think we're talking about a different, it's not like the software licenses that we have to run it on our,
Oh, it's not based out of like the Esri Pro or something?
It's a web-based. Unfortunately, Esri does this thing where everything is Arc something. So it's one of those Arc engine, basically. It's online, and it's basically broadcasting to this stuff to the web, which I don't think is it's not what we have. So it's not like if the suggestion here is that we might have a license that's doing a similar thing, we don't. And so
okay, so
Sarah, I'll trust Andy on that.
we can talk with Diane about purchasing an additional license, an ArcGIS license above what we're already asking for in our fiscal year budget. But that would be a new purchase or an addition to our existing account under Esri. And we would have to account for that with some budget, whether it's, conservation or resiliency or some other, grant or some source. That whatever $700 in this case, it just incidentally, those two things that we're getting are $700 licenses, but I don't think they come with the features that we would need here for this online broadcasting. So. That's my
So,
point, I guess.
Andy, I'm just wondering if it makes sense then to actually add the $700 piece into our budget, whether it's through conservation or planning, or maybe we have a resiliency fund that we can create, because we also are going to need it. We're going to do those story maps for the trails as well.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, if you're asking about the fiscal year budget that has already been submitted by the mayor
Got
to
it.
the city council.
Right.
So my point here, I guess, is that we can check with Diane, I guess, rather than spend a whole lot of time in a committee, we should check with Diane on the $700 licenses. There are two of them we were going to purchase to make sure that we have two in the planning office that are like, I assume John Eric has that most recent one over there, to make sure they're up to date. They're the ArcGIS licenses. I'm not sure that they include that web component, but Diane can confirm one or the other. That if that's not the case, it's a question of adding it. I suggest we use an existing account of some sort rather than dealing with another transfer, months of, council process to add something in. So.
Yeah, I don't know why conservation can't pay for something like that. It's
Yeah,
certainly
Joe, if that's all
within
right,
our-
to me, that seems logical and more efficient. And certainly anything that takes a while, I mean, Barry knows, it takes a while, even just procedurally to get transfers through the council. So.
Yeah.
And especially since we've been wanting to do these story maps for the trails, and that is sort of a conservation piece for the open space. So it would be germane to use.
Right.
Yeah.
And resiliency is part of our remit too. So
Right.
Yeah.
If I might ask, when do we need that capacity? Because if it's
oh,
past,
we're limited right now. We can't edit the existing story.
oh, all right. Okay. I was going to say, because if we wait until September, there's probably a sub coming out in September, isn't there?
Yeah, there certainly would be, although I think to Joe's point, we probably wouldn't have to wait for that or deal with any of the bureaucracy because we could use an existing account that's for those purposes. Yeah, thank you.
Better idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarah, one last thing, just one
Yeah.
last thing.
Yep.
I believe I'm in line with everything that Andy just said.
Yep.
Diane Gagnon, when you first said Diane, I was thinking about Gagnon.
Oh,
So Diane Gagnon and I have JS licenses, and I have an extra one for an intern. In the meantime, if you want, and whether it's Diane B or Diane Gagnon has time available to see if she can grab a hold of that software, because we have money right now. I could buy it tomorrow.
okay. Let's figure out. Well, I'll follow up with both of you. offline and we'll figure out what the license.
I just want to throw that out. I'm not trying to be a hero or anything.
Yeah.
We have money in our budget, Andy.
Yeah,
And
no, and that's great. I do leave it to you. I guess the one thing that's it might be worth keeping it under the umbrella of OPD, our department, and with Diane on the conservation account, potentially only because
please do. Yeah.
they're
Yep.
we're trying to do it annually, and that way we
Yep.
wouldn't have to wonder about that. We'd just be kind of make it recurring like the other ones. So
No, please do. I'm only saying if Sarah Tappan needs it right now
right, agreed.
for the next 2 months,
Agreed.
we have
Yeah,
plenty
we
of
can check with
bandwidth
Diane. I
money.
mean, that
Yeah.
one should not take very long to close that loop. I mean, that stuff's online, so in a matter of days, I'm sure Diane could close that loop depending on what we need to do there. So
Okay, we'll chase it down. Thank you. Just a couple more quick things because we're watching the time. So there's a storm surge presentation on June 12th, usual place and time, 6:30 p.m. at the Senior Community Center. The speaker is Katie Giannakopoulos from the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. She's their Climate Center Coastal Dynamics Research Associate, and she is going to speak on tidal predictability and flood forecasting. And then after the Green Expo, or probably actually more related to the Doug Tallamy talk, I had an outreach from the UU Church Green team. They'd like to work with the Resiliency team in the future to host some nationally recognized environmental speakers, people along the line of Lee Penniman, Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, Robin Wall Kimmerer, to speak in town, and they're offering the church venue and volunteers to help organize. So sounds good. I've told them we need a little break after the expo, but we'll talk to them in a few weeks. And that's it for the communication.
Maybe that can fit into the MVP grant.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Sarah, what's their how well focused is their program? Is it pretty broad based?
It's just started. There is no program. It was just an idea. They said, we like what you did. We'd like to work with you if you want to do some more. And they had a list of people they had a book list that they'd been working from.
Yeah, like Bill McKibben or someone like that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Or Gina McCarthy, because Gina's back in Boston.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Back to
Is
you,
that it,
Julia.
Sarah, for your updates? Okay, thanks for those updates and information. And all right, moving on. Regs working group. So the resiliency checklist. As far as I know, Andy, we haven't.
Yeah, sorry, I should probably give the most latest update on that. So Diane's done a great job of drafting that out. I think to me, and this is something that between the last discussion I had with Jane, we weren't able to close this loop. Everything has been a little bit chaotic with the planning office right now, a lot of stuff going on in the relocation. So we were going to, I think what made sense was, and again, if somebody else wants to jump onto this, just so it's not wasting time, in a direct committee meeting, was really just to go run through that proof, particularly with, I think, the chairs of the two boards we're talking with right now, planning and conservation, and we have one here, of course, but just to walk through, because again, our goal here is, what are things are being added as requirements for submission by an applicant as they go through the plan review process, so we can see how they align with our resiliency and sustainability goals. So irrespective of any new regulations coming down the road, this would still be something they'd have to fill out when they go online, for instance. So we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and copacetic with how that would, roll out. So I think it would make sense to run through that with them and just kind of make sure that there's consistency and everybody's on the same page, especially since we're trying to parallel potentially between planning board and conservation. So I thought that would maybe make sense rather than, any other path, and certainly not using a whole planning board or a whole conservation commission meeting unless either, chair feels that's necessary. So
I think that's a great idea, Andy. And then I guess the question is, if it looks good to both Joe and Rick, is it ready to go live? And my understanding is it pretty much is, right?
yeah, it looked good to me. I didn't see anything in it that flagged for me. It was more about just wanting to see how they would, again, they're the board members who, like us, would hear from applicants about, how this new additional submission requirement looks, or, and things like that. So making sure that the chair at least is, and then we can give an update to the board or commission together. But I think at least if the chairs are comfortable with that. So
did we also, I remember, I think it was Barry who brought this up at one of our previous meetings. Did we also want to sort of pilot test this in the public, like out in the community, for the people who will actually be going online and filling out these questionnaires, like a contractor, a developer, just a regular resident?
It's a great idea. I think we did this once or twice before, and we certainly could do that here. Certainly the planning office can pick one or two people who do quite a bit of, applications or might be usual suspects and just kind of see what they have to say about it, what they can offer us. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, just to make sure there are no like little last minute kinks. It's one thing for Joe and Rick to look at it. They've been involved since the beginning, but you
Yeah.
need
Well,
like
we all
some-
have a different lens, right? So
Yeah.
we might miss something that they pick up on or, yeah. So,
Right, exactly. And
okay.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I
Yeah.
think I'd love to be included.
I'll
in
just make the assumption here that Tom Hughes is not one of those people who's going to have the time to help us take a look at that. So if you guys anybody on the Concom side if you want to suggest over the years anybody that you think is good on that front, obviously on the planning board and on ZBA side, we have our usual suspects who are very, obvious kind of, but
Yeah, we can talk
the
with
Steve
yeah, I
Sawyers and
mean, Steve
yeah.
Sawyer is great, and is it Craig Pacina who's
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so people like that. I'm sure Diane could come up with a great list.
Yeah.
Usually it's the same people for planning and conservation who would be
Yeah. Okay.
cool. All right. Oh, and so I guess the to do on that piece is to just set up that meeting, right?
Yeah, exactly. And my suggestion, I guess, is I know that we've all been working on this for a while. My suggestion is we wait another week or so, only because there's a lot of shuffling around right now with the planning office trying to get back in here. So it'll be a little chaotic to try to throw that in the mix. So.
Okay. Well, just let us know.
Yeah.
And I'll maybe Jane or I will just send you a email reminder, I guess.
Yeah, I would say just check in with us next week, and we'll try
next
to nail
week.
something down in the calendar, just not for next week, so that they're waiting for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. No rush. So we'll just check in about this next week, and I can't wait to see the new, this setup. All right. So moving on, finance and funding, MVP action grant application for Cashman Park. As far as I'm aware, that was submitted up on time and looking really good. And we just now at this point have to wait to hear back from MVP on whether or not they're going to fund it. So fingers are crossed.
And that's in June, so
And
not too long.
Yeah.
And then there was also a second MVP action grant submitted by MVPC that we're tracking, and that was for a heat mapping study.
Oh, right.
So if they're awarded that, then we will want to participate in that.
The Urban Park
Oh,
project.
before we go on for that, I just wanted to mention the Mass Resilient Coast Plan. It's out for public comment, and comments are due June 12th. And then they'll have a final plan later this summer or fall. So I think it's relevant to the Conservation Commission as well as the Resiliency Committee to review that and give comments. It's a pretty high level plan. It covers the next 50 years and guidance and statewide framework for coastal resiliency. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of comments, but we need to look at it.
I've participated in a few of their workshops on this as they were developing it, and it is very interesting. It is very high level, sort of planning level stuff for the state to be able to look at regions that make sense in terms of resiliency funding and planning. In particular, I think it's centered around how they're going to fund stuff and prioritize projects. But it is an interesting new concept. It's great that they're putting some sort of strategy, long-term strategy towards all this and funding thoughts. So yeah, it's out there if people want to look at it and comment. I'll take another look at it and see if there's anything else Concom might want to say about it.
I'll send the pointer out.
Yeah, thank you.
And we should, as a group, we should probably compile the comments into one letter. Or how do you guys recommend that?
Should come from the city. I think it is I think it's broader than just, our resiliency committee. I feel like if there's a comment letter, it should come from the mayor. It's just my sense of how what level this is at.
Yeah, that sounds good. Should we give ourselves when's the deadline? Should we give ourselves a deadline to get it to the mayor?
They're due 5 p.m. June 12th.
Okay.
So back that off by a few days to give him time to process it.
Yeah, because the anything that he sends is probably going to be via email.
Yeah, that's how they want it.
June 12th?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So maybe we should, if people do, if John Eric, if you're taking a look at that, which would be excellent, and you have some thoughts or comments, and why don't we just sort of email them to each other or to Andy or something?
Just put them in a Google Doc, shared
Put
Google Doc.
'em in yeah, something like that, so that we can assemble a letter.
All right. I'll send out the pointer to it and a Google Doc.
Oh, you rock. Thank you.
That's really great. Thank you.
That'll help me a lot.
Okay. So now the urban park project.
All right, Urban Park Project, apparently I got lots of updates on how this all got sort of put on pause, and it is what it is. Don't need to go into that any further, but it sounds like we need to come up with a new location. So we have a subcommittee that Jane formed after the last Resiliency Committee meeting, and we just have to get that group together to start looking at, how we want to proceed with this for next year.
If I could just throw in there, because having been through some of the recent discussion, and I agree with Julie, there's a little bit of mixed bag of we might have been able to get ahead of, the location issue if we had input from a few others earlier on, or it was a little bit unclear from a few other parties. We might have been able to make another location work on this time cycle. So either way, it wasn't going to work its way through. It was a little bit last minute, but to try to shift location. But I think also part of what the other concern that was raised that I was hearing, and I think it will come back again, is even though this is ideally and is intended to be a low maintenance area, there is this constant concern that I'm hearing about, in terms of the limited resources and the areas to keep, up with in terms of landscaping and parks and maintenance and so forth. So I do think one way or another, even though there's an expectation of volunteers and things like that, in some instances, and there's an initial installation and then a longer span in which those things are all just kept there, there will be, I'm sure, questions about, who's going to take care of this or keep an eye on it. And there is always that tension between the reliance upon, full-time staff or part-time staff who are, limited resources and hours. And then there's the volunteers who may be great, but, come and go. So I just wanted to flag that as something that, in addition to the location, that if it could be addressed in the circling back again, particularly with the council, less so with the CPC, I think that'll be important, I think, as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I just reiterate that we had fully addressed the maintenance. We had a letter from DPS. We had a letter. We had met with Mike on site multiple times, and we had it all sort of dialed in and figured out. So it was a little frustrating that they.
Yeah, I understand and I concur. I think a lot of those things we thought were sort of addressed. I just know that I've also been hearing, and in terms of other parks and areas around the city, just a similar sort of theme, if you will, the last couple of years. And so I think that we're having heard that mentioned again, I think during the budgetary discussions,
We need to be more clear about it.
more clear about it. There's belt and suspenders, maybe there's a written comment, from a department or agency, or clarity as to backup plan or whatnot. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we had all that, but we will put that
Yeah.
front and center and not forget to highlight that at every turn.
Yeah.
Next time. And it is, you're right. I mean, there were features of this particular plan that made it seem like it would be something that needed to be maintained. Like there's a path, there's a bench, would that involve some additional maintenance, etc. So we just should be aware of how things are perceived in terms of maintenance. Thank you. Okay, so moving on from that, where we will put together a meeting with that subcommittee. City infrastructure project updates. John Eric.
Yeah, so I just sent you an email. Can you get access to your email?
Yeah.
The FLAP grant project for Plum Island Turnpike, resiliency improvements. Yeah, that's good enough. Thank you. So it's next Wednesday, the 28th, 5:30. Your attendance is welcome and preferred. So we just went over the fine tuning of the meeting today. Time Bond's going to present. We have a whole bunch of people on the project team, and we blasted as many info notices as we could. We have one from the city going out tomorrow. There's another one from, I think Jane sent it, but it had the wrong date. We're going to send another one tomorrow. So that is pretty much that. It's at the Wildlife Refuge headquarters, right at the beginning of the turnpike. Pretty easy. Any questions on that?
Nope.
And then the next one is the Lower Artichoke Dam was put on hold. But I did ask Wayne if we can add it to the Water Sewer Commission meeting next week, and he said yes. Hopefully that's okay with the corner office. The meeting for next week is an update on the project. Essentially, I put time bond on hold because we sent the governor a letter last year. We never got word back. And we're going to give them an update and then request their decision on some elevations. I need you, we need you, the city needs you, Resiliency Committee, to be heavily involved with this because the mayor removed this from the CIP. PAR was hired to evaluate 12 CIP projects. That process was not well done, in my opinion. We got the approval from the mayor to hire someone at a very high level of advisory and water supply experience. That did not happen. We ended up soliciting for project managers. We grabbed a project management firm, which is not what we wanted, but we did, and that's called PAR. Nothing wrong with the firm. It was just poorly executed. There's nothing wrong with PAR. They got paid very short money, $20,000 to evaluate 12 CIPs that they knew nothing about. There's a lot of detail that's been going on for 20 years plus with all these projects. And they put together their ranking. They published it. I have a hard copy in front of me. To me, it's insufficient. It's pretty much useless in my opinion. I'm just gonna be blunt. That's the only way I can be. I can't mess around with words. It's not their fault, but it doesn't help the city. The mayor and Wayne are using that to rank the CIPs. It doesn't address resiliency, it doesn't address droughts, it doesn't address water supply, it doesn't address water demand, it doesn't address so much that we succeeded in getting those CIPs into the resiliency projects into the CIP. So the CIP has taken a step back, and I need as much help to as I'm saying this as a resident. So we all need, as residents that we all are, except for you, Andy, right? Are you the only one?
I'm a resident.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I keep forgetting. Yeah.
Rick's the only one. If he's tired.
So they're doing a special meeting to go over the PAR with the commission in June. If you guys can pencil in June 11th, your attendance would be great. Just to keep up to date, so I'm not the only one giving you an update. Next week, I suggest that you attend our presentation.
Mhm.
I'm pushing to raise the water. I've been bouncing around for 2 years, but with Kentucky and all these other states getting inundated, the environment's going down the drain. We need to raise the water level. And I'm at a point where I'm not going to get any support locally within the city, except for our group here. And the commission needs to be put on notice, which I'm going to do next week, and force them to make a decision.
So do you want people at that Water and Sewer Commission meeting as well?
I would love it.
When and where is that meeting next week?
It is next.
You said June 11, right?
No, before that though.
That's a different one.
June 11th is a special Water Sewer Commission meeting. to go over the PAR report. So at 4 o'clock is next Wednesday, the 28th, before the 5:30 flap. The commission meeting's at 4.
At DPS conference room?
Yeah, DPS conference room. You guys know the drill. You helped write most of you helped write the report. The more volume we have, the better. And you guys can refresh your memories, but essentially, raising the water level has a lot of benefits. And right now, sacrificing the lower has been discussed amongst the water division because they do not feel it's a high priority because it's the third lowest volume. So unofficially, they are not in favor of spending a lot of money on the dam. That proved correct in the PAR report, which makes me think that when they said that verbally to the PAR people, that the PAR people listened to them and not me, because out of 12 CIPs, they put the dam down at 12, down to 8.
And are you using the recently released FEMA maps that show both dams under the 100-year flood elevation?
So that needs to be partially corrected. If you heard that from me, I apologize. It went up 0.4 feet, Sarah,
Okay.
for the lower. I looked at the profile just actually yesterday and again today. So I looked at the FEMA profile. It's 13 at the upper dam.
Oh.
So they are still looking at that as an inland flooding condition, not from the Merrimack. But
Yeah,
my point and
that's
our point of the Resiliency Committee is pretty simple. The Merrimack flooding at 12.4 reaches the upper dam, which is 12.3.
Yep.
So you can do all the jibber-jacking and wordsmithing and word salad you want. At the end of the day, when FEMA changes to 12.4 at the lower artichoke, that's close enough to impact the upper.
And even FEMA new maps are based on historical data. None of it is taking into consideration anything that might happen in the future. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a huge point that Julie made. And I tried to emphasize that with the FEMA maps going to the city council. That does not take into account future projections. So, yeah.
And thank you too for that, because these are the things I'm writing down that, I'm only one person, but collectively we can't forget that, because moving forward, a city should not spend $10 million to build something that protects us today. That is like insanely stupid. And I will scream until I lose my voice, because I'm not so sure that the governor even got that letter or even looked at it. And I am convinced that the governor's office would be more than willing to help us permit this project. The Office of Dam Safety said that we can raise the water level.
You have that in writing from them?
I do.
Yeah, that would be great to see and have.
Strictly from the guy who is the director, because I told him about the letter of the governor. He goes, I don't see what the problem is. That you just have to go through the MEPA process. Yep. Neither he or I are saying that we can achieve it. What we're saying is we should at least proceed into the MEPA permitting process and fight hard for it, because fighting for climate change is new. Any old regs are old.
Okay.
John Eric, besides the PAR report, why did it fall down the list?
You go to the meeting and ask them.
Okay.
I have my beliefs, and I can't say it on a recorded Zoom.
So it's eighth on the list of priorities citywide, or 8th on the list of DPS priorities?
The 12 water projects.
12 water. It's 8th on the list of the 12 water projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, that's.
Yeah.
Well, I remember too, resiliency, this is the first time in the capital improvement plan, resiliency is being mentioned, but it really only is a 5%, sort of consideration.
I need to cut you off. I created those for the reason. I'm very sorry, Andy. I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking what you're saying about the first time. When we first put this in, Andy, we had the resiliency word for all of them.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm talking about the city's the CIP ranking that the city council was looking for. That this is the first round or first year in which the city's actual capital improvement plan includes a ranking system. And here resiliency is mentioned, but I think for all of our purposes, we would probably like to see in future years resiliency come up as a consideration because it's a long-term consideration as ranking for prioritization of a CIP. Yeah. To your
My
point.
sincere apologies for interrupting. Thank you very much for that, because even the ranking in the CIP that came from the city office that I have right here, they gave it a, you can't see it. They gave it a 36.7, which is almost to the bottom. So the people that ranked that, in my humble opinion, did not understand at all what that project's about.
Yep, I agree.
They didn't bring me in. Wayne knows nothing about it.
So Wednesday next week at 4 p.m. That's the 28th at 4 p.m. in the DPS conference room. And then again on June 11th, it's a special water board meeting to go over the PAR report. So both of those sound important, but is the next week's meeting about the CIP piece? Like it's placed?
No, next week is, it'd be good to go. But I'm not making them make a decision next week. It's an intro to bring it back on the table. We're gonna go, I'm gonna, as the project manager, I'm gonna push to raise the water level and the dam. Those are two different things. You guys know that. Water's water, and then the dam is higher. And then we have the mechanical gate
Right.
that can achieve the total. So I'm gonna have them sit on it. I'm gonna they're gonna have to reconvene. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Will,
keep that in
will
mind.
Tom be there?
Kuzik?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So
Hmm.
June
He's not
11th,
he's not in favor of the dam. He's not a proponent of spending a lot of money to save the lower.
okay.
He's not.
Well, I mean, but I say that because of him saying it, but his official answer, I mean, it came out in the PAR. He was part of the people that got interviewed, and you'd have to ask him. But he has told us in groups that he doesn't think that saving, he wants to pipe to the upper.
Right.
Is his strategy to sort of like sacrifice the lower artichoke in a way? And that if we're going to spend a lot of money, we should focus on the upper artichoke and Indian Hill as our source?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, that's worthy. That's worthy, except for one thing. He's not a climate believer. And with climate, you need to save every drop. Now, I could be absolutely psychotic about that desire.
Well,
In my opinion, you have to be psychotic to throw away any water source in 2025.
well, that's the question. So, I mean, I understand the sort of concept around sacrificing the lower to spend the money on the upper and the Indian Hill, but do we have the capacity at that point? I mean, do we have the capacity that we need if we sacrifice the lower? Let's say we lose the lower. Do we have enough?
The problem is that we could lose the lower tomorrow. And how long are we going to live with that? We've already had the shot over the bow until the Indian Hill pipeline can get built. I mean, that's a multi-year down the road thing. And you don't hear the discussions about how are we going to protect it in the short term anymore.
Right.
I think we protect our existing supply before we start talking about pulling water from elsewhere and wondering about how that's going to pan out in the future. I think that's a little more dicey than trying to just protect what we have.
Right. We should protect all of what we have, not just parts of it.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And all right, let's just quickly move on to, because Andy, I know you have to leave it for the office update for environmental planner staffing. I believe that went out for re-advertising.
That's right. Yeah. You take a look for more candidates. And so we're hopeful, like I said, it'll take a little bit longer for us to get that position filled. So we will keep you informed. And obviously that person is very important. Unfortunately, we're losing Julia. We need somebody to fill that role. And the resiliency side and everything on this front is there's a lot more of that for the city right now, especially with these grants. So I've been pressing with, both with the administration, HR and so forth to kind of circle back on that, given that the initial candidate we were hoping would take position was not interested. So.
And so Andy, I just want to ask one more question. Has it been posted in the same place as we posted before? Do you need me to send it out to anybody?
Oh yeah, sorry. No, let me push it. I wanted to make sure actually you and I do the same thing. So with MABCC and the planning
Yeah.
folks, same thing. Yeah, let me push that your
Okay.
way. Yep.
And Andy, is
Yeah.
it full-time or part-time?
No, thank you for asking. Yeah, that's the issue. And it was part of the conundrum, I guess, a little bit is because the council didn't approve a mid-year transfer to bring that up to full-time. We were waiting for the next budget cycle and July 1 for that to be determined.
Right.
And so unfortunately, it's understandable why a few candidates might have been on the fence or said no, pulled away actually, because they're not sure if they're going to get a full-time position or not. So
And it's even hard to, so at this point, it's even hard to advertise it right now.
And I'm
until we
sorry,
know the answer. You got to go.
I have to
Yeah.
do the other
We'll
Zoom at 4. I
Okay, we'll
apologize.
follow up about this later, but thanks for the update, Andy.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So
bye.
Julia, do you know if it was in for full-time for the new budget?
I believe, so they've asked for it to
It's
be
been put in
full-time.
for full-time. We're
Okay.
hoping the council will approve. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
think
and I plan
That's
on
what people
making
are waiting for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what people are waiting for. That's what Lauren was waiting for.
Yes.
And I think anyone else who applies for the job is going to look at this job and say, this isn't part-time.
Right.
What are we talking about here? So it might.
All right. I have a few folks who are looking for
Okay.
me to host a Zoom at 4. So
Okay.
just we touch base on the next meeting date and then
Yeah, but
circle
I
back.
think we can keep going without you,
I'll-
Andy, right? Because I started this.
I will try to let that happen. I do not believe that
Do
will
you
work.
think it might not work?
Okay,
Oh,
we
okay.
might all
That's
get
why,
cut off.
that's why I
Okay.
flagged it. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
So then we should sign out and
Yep.
what's our next meeting is just the scheduled next meeting, which I
Yeah.
believe is whenever in June.
June 18th.
June
18th.
18th.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
you
Thanks.
later.
See
Yeah.
you
Okay,
all then.
bye.
Okay.
Goodbye,
thanks.
all.
Bye.
Okay.
All right. So it worked.
It worked. Because
I knew it. I
now
knew it
you
because
know.
because I'm an alternate host and I actually started the webinar. So I kind of knew that I could keep on going. It's like, anyway.
Okay, whatever.
Anyway, whatever.
Later,
I see you later. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.